If you had the chance last week to see in the Spanish streets some of the procession during the Holy Week, perhaps you have heard some of the marches that Manuel Font de Anta composed, such as Amarguras or Soleá de mano. But did you know that Font de Anta also composed flamenco works for piano? In episode 33 of the podcast Forgotten Sounds of Flamenco, I will talk about these flamenco works by this incredible composer, and you will be able to listen to some of them very unknown.
Sounds that once were listened. Sounds that once were enjoyed. Sounds that once were danced. Sounds relegated to oblivion. And yet, there is still something we can do for them. Let us summon them. Let us summon them.
Welcome to the podcast Forgotten Sounds of Flamenco. My name is José Miguel Hernández Jaramillo, and I invite you to enroll in this journey through the sounds, stories, spaces, and people that were part of the 19th century flamenco. Hi, how are things? I hope you are very well. After the Holy Week, we are going to dedicate this episode to talking about a Sevillian composer who has become famous for being the author of some of the most significant processional marches in the Holy Week in Seville and Andalusia in general. He composed marches such as Soleá de mano or Amarguras. Still, he also made incredible compositions of other musical genres, including flamenco. The protagonist of today's episode is Manuel Font de Anta, born in Seville into a family of musicians. His grandfather, José Font Marimón, was born in Catalonia, in Puigcerdà, in Girona. As a military musician, he was assigned to Seville as director of the band of a regiment called Soria 9. He was author of another tremendous processional march called Quinta Angustia. Manuel Font Fernández de la Ranz was Font Marimón's son and director of the municipal band of Seville. He also composed processional marches, among them some that I particularly love, such as the one titled A la memoria de mi padre or La Sagrada Lanzada. Manuel Font Fernández de la Ranz was the father of Manuel Font de Anta, who, as I say, in addition to some beautiful processional marches, also left us zarzuelas, Andalusian songs, and what is perhaps not so well known, that he also composed a series of flamenco works in a collection titled Cante Gitano, modelos clásicos, recolectados, transcritos y armonizados para piano por Manuel Font de Anta. Translated is Gypsy Songs, Classical Mothers, collected, transcribed and harmonized for piano by Manuel Font de Anta. This collection was published within the framework of the famous Granada competition of 1922, during which many magazines and media outlets echoed the event and published numerous pieces related to flamenco. This collection contains 15 works for piano, and let's say that we can find both the most fashionable flamenco pieces in the early 1920s, such as fandangos, granainas or malagueñas, as well as some of the new songs that have been firmly incorporated into flamenco a few years ago. Years before, especially by the brilliant singer Pastora Pavón Niña de los Peines, Font de Anta includes 3 of Pastora's creation in this collection. That is, bulerías, canto de columpio, also known as bamberas, and peteneras. This very electric piece we are listening to is the first of these works, a bulería. Well, this is one of the first bulerías written for piano since a little over a decade ago, La Niña de los Peines incorporated the bulería as a new flamenco palo. If you didn't know, bulerías is one of the youngest flamenco songs. In fact, this is the first time in this podcast we heard a bulería because the contents of the previous episodes dealt more with music from the 19th century when bulería was not yet part of this flamenco. The bamberas, or cantos de columpio in English, swing songs, as Font de Anta titled it, was also a song created by La Niña de los Peines from some songs that were sung in Seville area when people played swinging. Let's listen to a little bit of this work and notice if the melody of this swing or canto de columpio sounds familiar to you. Perhaps you have noticed that this melody was also used by Camarón de la Isla in his famous Leyenda del Tiempo. I mentioned previously that Font de Anta also includes in this collection some peteneras creation by La Niña de los Peines. As you know, the peteneras were already sung before La Niña de los Peines. Still, according to her testimony, the ones she sang were her creation. They are slightly different from the previous ones in their strophic form, tempo, or speed with which they are interpreted. And the melody is also a bit different. Notice how popular these Niña de los Peines peteneras were in their time, which are the peteneras model more performed today by flamenco artists. Let's listen to a little bit of these peteneras by Manuel Font de Anta. In addition to these works that had recently been introduced to flamenco by La Niña de los Peines, Manuel Font de Anta also composed the following seguidilla, entitled Seguidilla Gitana, Gypsy Seguidilla, in which he includes some sections without musical accompaniment, trying to imitate the very melismatic singing of the seguidilla. Let's listen to a little bit of this piece. Well, let's listen to two more pieces. The first one is a Soleá, which contains all musical patterns typical of the Soleá at that time. Finally, we will listen to a gem of this collection. This is an Alegrías titled Alegrías of the Turruana. The trust is that I don't know what this name of Turruana means. Perhaps it is related to a jota from Extremadura that is precisely called La Turruana. If you are listening to this episode and know what this name can mean, I encourage you to share it by leaving a comment in the YouTube video of this episode in the YouTube channel Sonidos Olvidados de Musicología Creativa. And by the way, I would ask you to subscribe to this channel if you are not already subscribed. Well, let's listen to this beautiful work. Well, this was today's episode with a lot of music, which you will not be able to hear anywhere else because, as far as I know, these works are not being performed and have not been recorded. The idea of this podcast is, in addition to getting to know the unknown world of the flamenco in its early days, that you can listen to these pieces, these forgotten sounds of flamenco that are fascinating and they are really unknown today. As you listen to the magnificent marches of Manuel Font de Anta in one of the cofradías during the Holy Week, take a moment to appreciate that he also composed beautiful flamenco works. In this episode, we have endeavored to remember and enjoy these works, a small tribute to his talent and contribution to flamenco. You already know that you can follow us on social media and leading platforms such as Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or the YouTube channel Sonidos Olvidados de Musicología Creativa. I will see you here in 2 weeks.